Revenge with Karen.
They say the hospitality industry is just babysitting for adults who have access to credit cards and a god complex. I own the Azure Coast, a boutique luxury hotel on the Florida Panhandle that caters to the kind of people who think all-inclusive is an insult and who can distinguish between 400 and 600 thread count sheets by touch alone. I built this place from the ground up. I didn't inherit it. I didn't marry into it. Clawed it out of the sand after my first marriage imploded and took my catering business down with it. My office overlooks the main atrium, a glass-walled fortress of solitude where I can watch the lobby like a hawk circling a field of mice. It was a Tuesday, always the day when the weirdest administrative grenades land on my desk, when the booking request came through. My events director, Sarah, walked in with that specific look on her face. You know the one. It's the look that says, I have a client who wants to release live doves indoors, and I need you to tell them why that's a biological hazard. Valerie, she said, dropping a thick dossier on my mahogany desk, we have a request for the Grand Ocean Ballroom. Full buyout, Memorial Day weekend. They want the platinum package, the reserve wine list, and they want to bring their own cake. I laughed, not looking up from my laptop. Denied. We have a pastry chef who trained in Lyon. No outside food. Who is it? Some influencer trying to trade exposure for lobster tails. That's the thing, Sarah said, tapping the folder. It's a corporate booking. Apex Synergies LLC. But the rider includes a bridal suite setup for Miss Astrid Vance and a groom's lounge for Mr. Jordan Fields. The air in the room didn't just change, it evaporated. My heart didn't skip a beat. It stopped, assessed the situation, and then started beating again with the slow, heavy rhythm of a war drum. Jordan Fields, my ex-fiancé, the man who, 5 years ago, decided that our catering business partnership was too stifling and that his 24-year-old marketing intern was a better strategic alignment for his future. He didn't just leave me, he dissolved the LLC behind my back, leaving me with the debts while he took the client list to start his tech consultancy. Valerie? Sarah asked, stepping closer. You went pale. You know them? I took a slow sip of my lukewarm espresso. This is the part where I tell you that if you love stories about vindictive exes and corporate warfare, you should probably hit follow button and upvote this mess, because what I'm about to tell you is cheaper than therapy and more satisfying than a subpoena. Trust me, we're just getting started. I know the name, I said, my voice steady. Apex Synergies is a shell company. Jordan uses it for tax write-offs when he wants to buy things he doesn't want the IRS or his investors to look too closely at. I opened the dossier. The contract was standard, but the audacity was exceptional. Jordan was booking my hotel for his wedding. Now, you have to understand the geography of my life. When Jordan and I split, I was destitute. I lived in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew and despair. He took the high road, which is to say, he took the cash and the reputation. I moved 2 hours south, reinvented myself, and built the Azure Coast specifically to be the kind of place Jordan would wish he could afford. And now, clearly, he could. But why here? Did he know? I scanned the paperwork. The contact email was a generic assistance address. The planner listed was a third-party agency from Miami. He doesn't know, I whispered, a cold smile touching the corner of my mouth. Thinks this is just another high-end venue. He doesn't know I'm the owner. Sarah frowned. Okay, so do we decline? We're technically at capacity, but I can squeeze them if the money is right. But if it's personal, oh, it's personal, I said, standing up and walking to the window. Down below, the bellhops were loading luggage into a Rolls-Royce. The machinery of my empire was humming perfectly. But we don't decline. We don't. No, I turned back to her. If we decline, just go to the Ritz down the street. He'll have his perfect day, he'll toast his new life, and he'll never know how close he came to the edge of the cliff. I looked at the contract again. The deposit was massive, non-refundable. And there, in the fine print of the venue rules I wrote myself at 3 a.m. 3 years ago, fueled by spite and Chardonnay, was Clause 14b regarding misrepresentation of party identity. If the booking party fails to disclose the true nature of the event or the identity of the principals for commercial or publicity reasons, The venue reserves the right to terminate the event at any time without refund. He used a shell company. He didn't list himself as the primary contact. He was hiding. Sarah, I said, smoothing my blazer, approve the booking. Send them the welcome basket, the expensive one with the truffle oil. Are you sure? Sarah looked terrified. She's a good kid, but she doesn't have the stomach for blood sports. I'm positive, I lied. My hands were shaking, just a little, not from fear, from adrenaline. It's the same feeling you get when you're standing on the high dive, looking down at the water, knowing that the fall is going to be long, but the splash is going to be spectacular. Jordan Fields was coming to my house. He was bringing his new fiancée, Astrid, a name that sounded like a comic book villain or a jagged rock. We're going to celebrate their love on my marble floors, under my crystal chandeliers, drinking my champagne. I sat back down and picked up my pen. I signed the approval line with a flourish. Valerie Sterling. I didn't use that name when I was with Jordan. Back then, I was just Valerie Fields. Even though we weren't married yet, I used his name professionally. When I left, I took my maiden name back and polished it until it shined like a diamond. One more thing, Sarah, I called out as she reached the door. Yes, boss. Put me down as the lead logistics consultant for the event. I don't want my name on any guest-facing paperwork. I want to be invisible. If anyone asks, I'm just operations. Sarah nodded slowly. Understood. Invisible. I turned back to the window. The ocean was churning, gray and violent. A storm was coming in off the coast. The weatherman called it a tropical depression. I called it appropriate atmosphere. Jordan thought he was booking a venue. What he was actually booking was a front row seat to his own reckoning. And the best part? He was paying me $150,000 for the privilege. I opened my laptop and created a new folder titled Project Icarus. Let's see how close to the sun this bastard wants to fly. 2 weeks later, the happy couple arrived for the site walkthrough. I made sure I was nowhere near the front desk when they checked in. Instead, positioned myself in the grand ballroom, wearing the standard issue hotel uniform, a black button-down, black slacks, and a name tag that simply read Valerie Event Staff. No owner, no CEO, just a cog in the machine. I grabbed a clipboard and pretended to be inspecting the sconces. The double doors swung open, and in they walked. Jordan looked exactly the same, which was annoying. He has that kind of face that ages like a senator, silver touching the temples, jawline sharp enough to cut steak, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. He was on his phone, naturally. He was always on his phone, and then there was Astrid. If Jordan was old tech money, Astrid was Instagram influencer who just discovered Dutchamp. She was tiny, blonde, and vibrating with an aggressive energy that sucked the oxygen out of the room. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, in a ballroom, which has no windows. It's smaller than it looked online. Astrid announced, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. She didn't look at the architecture or the hand-painted murals. She looked at the space as a background for herself. My event director, Sarah, was leading the tour, her smile plastered on so tight I worried it might crack her enamel. Actually, Miss Vance, this room accommodates 400 comfortably. For your guest list of 200, it will feel quite spacious. I don't want spacious, Astrid snapped, taking off her glasses to reveal eyes that were cold and assessing. I want intimate, but expensive intimate. Jordan, get off the phone. Jordan lowered the phone but didn't put it away. Babe, it's the investors. They're nervous about the Q3 projections. I'm nervous about the floral arrangements looking like a funeral home, she shot back. Priorities. I stood by the service entrance, holding my breath. Jordan looked tired. Not the tired of a man working hard, but the tired of a man who has sold his soul and is realizing the payments are higher than advertised. Sarah gestured toward me. And this is Valerie from our logistics team. She'll be ensuring the physical setup meets your specifications. Jordan's eyes swept over me. This was the moment where he would recognize the woman he lived with for 6 years, the woman he planned a life with, the woman whose credit score he ruined. His gaze slid over me like I was a piece of furniture. No recognition, no spark, nothing. I had cut my hair into a sharp bob and dyed it a darker brunette since we split. I was wearing glasses, but still to be looked at and not seen, it stings. But it also armed me. If I was invisible, I was dangerous. Hi, Astrid said, barely glancing at me. Okay, Valerie, listen. I want the head table on a dais. Elevated. I want to be looking down at the guests. Is that possible? We can certainly arrange a staging platform, I said, keeping my voice flat and subservient. I pitched it slightly lower than usual, stripping away the authority I usually project. Good. And these drapes, she gestured vaguely at the custom silk velvet curtains I had imported from Italy. They're depressing. Can we replace them? I want something sheer, more ethereal. Those are load-bearing aesthetics, I deadpanned. Astrid blinked. What, I mean? I corrected myself. They are integrated into the acoustic soundproofing of the room. Removing them would compromise the audio quality for your band. Ugh. Fine, just cover them with flowers or something. Jordan, are you listening? Jordan sighed. Flowers, got it. Whatever you want, Astrid. Just tell me what to sign. You're useless, she muttered, turning her back on him. She walked over to one of my junior banquet captains, sweet kid named Matteo who was setting up a sample table setting. Excuse me, she barked at him. Why is this fork here? Matteo stammered. It's the salad fork, ma'am. It looks cluttered, she said, picking up the silver utensil, heavy, real silver, mind you, and dropping it onto the table with a loud clang. Take it away. We'll do salad and entree with the same fork. Efficiency. I felt my blood pressure spike. This wasn't just about etiquette, it was about respect. Don't ask guests to eat Chilean sea bass with a salad fork because you think the table looks cluttered. Actually, ma'am, I interjected, stepping forward. The silverware placement is standard for a 5-course service. Removing it might confuse the service staff and delay the dinner. Astrid whipped around, staring at me as if the vacuum cleaner had just spoken. I didn't ask for your opinion, she hissed. I gave an instruction. You're here to move tables, not to give me a lesson in cutlery. Right, Jordan? Jordan looked up, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. Just do what she says, he told me, waving a hand dismissively. We're paying for the place, aren't we? There it was, the entitlement. The assumption that money buys not just the space, but the dignity of the people inside it. Of course, Mr. Fields, I said. My voice was sugar glass, sweet, transparent, and ready to draw blood. I watched them for the rest of the hour. I took notes, not about the wedding, but about them. Astrid was insecure, covering it with cruelty. Jordan was checked out, covering it with money. They were a disaster waiting to happen. As they were leaving, Astrid stopped at the door and pointed at a small smudge on the glass, a fingerprint left by a child probably 10 minutes ago. Filthy, she sneered. If I see one speck of dirt on my wedding day, I'm getting a refund. We strive for perfection, Sarah said weakly. Strive harder, Astrid said. Jordan held the door for her, trailing behind like a beaten dog with a Gucci collar. As the limo pulled away, I looked at Sarah. She was fuming. I hate them, Sarah said. I literally hate them. Can we charge them a jerk tax? Oh, we're going to do better than that, I said, dropping the clipboard. I pulled my phone out and dialed my legal counsel. Hey, David, I said into the phone as I walked back toward my office, shedding the invisible servant persona with every step. I need you to pull the file on Apex Synergies, and I need you to double-check the venue exclusivity clauses in our standard contract, specifically the ones regarding morality and conduct. Yes, I think we're going to have a breach. I walked past the smudge on the door. I didn't wipe it off. It was a reminder. They wanted to treat my staff like dirt? Fine. I'd show them what happens when the dirt fights back. My lawyer, David, is a shark in a pinstripe suit. He's the kind of guy who reads terms and conditions for fun. When I walked into his office, which is conveniently located on the second floor of the hotel, because I like to keep my sharks in the tank, he was already reviewing the Apex Synergies file. You're playing a dangerous game, Val, he said, not looking up. I'm not playing, I sat down, crossing my legs. I'm enforcing policy. Technically, David swiveled his screen toward me, you're right. Clause 14b is solid, but they could argue that Apex Synergies is the paying entity and Jordan is just the beneficiary. It's a gray area. Jordan doesn't do gray areas, I countered. He does loopholes. Look at the signatory on the deposit check. David zoomed in. It wasn't Jordan. It was a T. Miller, Tracy Miller, I said, his CFO. and also his mistress during the last year of our relationship, before he upgraded to the 24-year-old marketing intern, and now to Astrid. He's using his company funds to pay for a personal wedding, disguising it as a corporate retreat in the books to write it off. That's tax fraud, David. But more importantly to us, it's a breach of our commercial use policy. Weddings are personal events. He booked it as a corporate gala to get the business rate. David whistled low. Okay, we scammed you out of about 20% on the booking fee. He scammed me out of a life, I said sharply. Then I took a breath. But yes, financially, he defrauded the venue, which gives me the right to cancel the contract immediately. So, do I send the letter now? David hovered his hand over the keyboard. We can refund the deposit minus a penalty, tell them to get lost, and fill the date with that pharmaceutical conference that's been begging for a slot. I looked at the screen, the cursor blinked, one click and it would all be over. Jordan would be inconvenienced, he'd be angry, he'd sue maybe. But he'd just move the wedding. No, I said. David looked at me over his glasses. Val, if you let them walk in the door knowing they're in breach, you're implicitly accepting the terms. You lose leverage. I don't want leverage, David. I want a checkmate. I stood up and paced the small office. The carpet was plush, absorbing the sound of my heels. If I cancel now, he spins it. He tells Astrid that I, the bitter ex who somehow runs this hotel, sabotaged their love. I become the villain in their narrative. He gets to play the victim again. I stopped and looked at the framed photo of my hotel's grand opening on the wall. I was cutting the ribbon alone. No partner, no husband, just me. I need him to hang himself, I said. I need the breach to be undeniable. I need a public violation of the venue rules that goes beyond paperwork. I need him to break the house rules while the house is watching. David leaned back. You're waiting for them to screw up during the event. Have you met Astrid? I raised an eyebrow. She tried to reorganize the silverware because it looked cluttered. She's going to treat my staff like serfs. She's going to violate the noise ordinances. She's going to damage property. And Jordan is going to let her. This is risky, David warned. If they behave perfectly, they won't. But if they do, then I serve them the best wedding of their lives, I said, though the words tasted like ash. And I take his money, all of it, and I use it to renovate the spa. Poetic justice. David sighed and closed the laptop. Fine. But I'm keeping the termination notice drafted, just in case. Keep it printed, I said. Keep it in your jacket pocket on the night of the wedding. I walked out of the legal office and down the back corridors. The hotel has a network of service hallways, the arteries we call them. Guests never see them. They're concrete, fluorescent-lit, smelling of laundry detergent and coffee. This is where the real work happens. I passed a housekeeping cart. The maid, Maria, nodded to me. Buenos dias, Miss Sterling. Morning, Maria. How's the knee? Better, thank you for the specialist. I pay for my staff's private health insurance. I pay above market rates. I treat them like human beings because I know what it's like to be treated like an asset. Jordan used to call staff resources. We need to optimize our resources, he'd say, meaning he wanted to fire the dishwasher to save $50 a week. I reached the kitchen. The noise was a symphony of clattering pans and shouting chefs. The air smelled of reducing veal stock and baking bread. This was my engine room. I stood there, watching the chaos coalesce into order. Jordan was coming here to parade his success. He was bringing his resource mindset into my home. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. Make sure the contract for the Fields wedding includes the strict conduct and harassment addendum. Have them initial every page. A moment later, Sarah replied, done. They didn't even read it. Astrid just wanted to know if the paper was organic. I smiled. Never read? That was their fatal flaw. They thought the world would bend to them, so why bother reading the instructions? The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for the prey to walk in and snap the wire. The wedding day arrived with the humidity of a sauna and the tension of a bomb squad dispatch. The grand ballroom had been transformed. I had to admit, despite Astrid's personality, the room looked spectacular. White orchids dripped from the ceiling like frozen rain. Lighting was amber and soft, hiding the clutter of the silverware. A 12-piece band was playing a jazz cover of a pop song that I'm pretty sure was about a breakup, which I found delicious. I was wearing a charcoal silk jumpsuit, elegant enough to be a guest, severe enough to be management, nondescript enough to be ignored. I stood near the bar, nursing a sparkling water, watching the circus. Jordan was holding court near the ice sculpture, which was, inexplicably, shaped like a swan wearing a diamond necklace. He was laughing too loud, clutching a scotch like a lifeline. He looked sweaty. Astrid was a vision in Vera Wang and Vanity. She moved through the room not like a bride, but like a supervisor conducting a performance review. She wasn't smiling, she was checking angles for the photographer. I checked my watch. 7:15 p.m. Dinner service was starting. This was the danger zone. High-end service is a ballet. One misstep. Cold soup, a dropped fork, and the illusion breaks. I saw Maria, the housekeeper I'd spoken to in the hallway, helping the banquet team. We were short-staffed due to a flu bug, so everyone was pitching in to clear appetizers. Maria was carrying a heavy tray of empty champagne flutes. Astrid spun around, her massive tulle skirt flaring out, and nearly collided with Maria. Maria froze, balancing the tray expertly. "Pardon me, ma'am." Astrid looked down at her dress. There was nothing on it, not a drop. But she recoiled as if she'd been touched by plague. "Watch where you're going," Astrid snapped, her voice cutting through the jazz music. "You almost ruined a $20,000 dress with your clumsiness." "I am very sorry, ma'am." Maria lowered her head. "Don't be sorry, be competent," Astrid hissed. I took a step forward, my hand tightening on my glass, but I stopped. Not yet. I watched as Jordan walked over, put a hand on Astrid's waist. "Babe, relax. It's fine." "It's not fine, Jordan. The help is everywhere. It's like an infestation." Infestation. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. It was heavier than the anger I felt about the divorce. This was professional. This was my family she was insulting. I walked over to the nearest table, table 4, occupied by some of Jordan's tech bros who were loosening their ties and talking about crypto. I sat down in an empty chair for a moment to adjust my shoe, blending in. A waiter passed by with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, miniature beef Wellingtons. I reached out and took one, putting it on a small cocktail plate. I was technically tasting for quality control. Astrid swept past the table, heading for the sweetheart dais. She saw me. She stopped. She looked at me, sitting there, eating a beef Wellington. She didn't recognize me as the logistics woman from the walkthrough, just saw a woman in a dark suit eating her food. To her, I was just staff who had gotten too comfortable. She marched over. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I looked up, chewing slowly. "Yes." She reached down and literally snatched the plate from my hand. "Staff," she said, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "eat in the kitchen." The table went silent. The tech bros looked awkward. Jordan, standing 10 feet away, turned around. He saw me, saw Astrid holding my plate. For a second, I saw recognition flicker in his eyes. Not of my name, but of my face. Have I seen her before? But he dismissed it. He was too drunk on his own importance to process it. "Astrid, let's go sit down," Jordan said, waving his hand. Astrid glared at me. "Do your job. Get out of the guest area. You're ruining the aesthetic." She turned and walked away, handing the plate to a passing waiter with a look of disgust. Trash this. I sat there for 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, I replayed the last 5 years. The tears, the bankruptcy hearings, the nights I scrubbed toilets in this hotel because I couldn't afford a night cleaner yet. The way I built this place brick by brick to be a sanctuary of hospitality. And this woman, this tourist in my life, just told me to eat in the kitchen. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I stood up. I smoothed my silk jumpsuit. I placed my cloth napkin on the table, perfectly folded. I looked at Jordan, who was guiding Astrid to their throne. "Okay," I thought, "you want staff to eat in the kitchen? Then let's see how you eat when the staff disappears." I turned and walked toward the service exit. I didn't look back. I walked past Sarah, who was standing by the door, eyes wide. She had seen the whole thing. "Val," she whispered. "Are you okay?" I stopped. I looked at her. My face must have been terrifyingly calm because she took a step back. "Sarah," I said softly, "initiate Protocol 0. Protocol 0? But that's for emergencies, fires, hurricanes." "This is a hurricane," I said, pushing the swinging doors open. "It's a Category 5 bitch named Astrid. Shut it down." I walked into the kitchen. The noise hit me, the heat. "Everyone stop," I said. It wasn't a shout. It was a command. The kitchen went silent. Chefs froze with pans in midair. "Set down your tools," I said. "Turn off the ovens. We are done for the night." The chef de cuisine, a large man named Henry, stepped forward. "Madam, the main course, the Cebus is canceled," I said. "Staff eat in the kitchen, so let's eat." I grabbed a bottle of Dom Perignon from the service fridge, popped the cork, and took a swig. "You have 15 minutes to pack up," I told the room. "We are closing the hotel." There's a specific kind of silence that falls over a commercial kitchen when the ventilation hoods are turned off. It's heavy. It presses against your eardrums. "Madam Sterling," Henry said, wiping his hands on his apron. "Are you serious?" "The contract is void," I said, walking towards the back office where the master controls were. "They violated Clause 7, abuse of staff, and Clause 14, fraudulent booking. I am exercising my right as the proprietor to refuse service." I looked at my team, 30 people. Cooks, dishwashers, servers. They looked confused, but they also looked relieved. They had been dealing with Astrid's demands all week. "Everyone gets paid for the full shift," I announced, "plus a hazard bonus. Now, clear the stations. I don't want a single plate leaving this room." I left them to it and took the service elevator up to the executive suite, my office. I sat down at my desk and pulled up the building management system. It's a smart hotel. Everything is connected. The lights, the sound, the AC, the locks. I called Security Chief Mike. He's a former grandiose guy, ex-military, loyal to a fault. "Mike, I need a perimeter," I said into the phone. "We are evicting the grand ballroom." "Evicting?" Mike's voice crackled. "Copy that. Hostile, passive-aggressive," I corrected. "But let's treat it as hostile. I want 4 guards at the main ballroom doors. I want the valet service suspended. Bring the cars around, park them in the driveway, and hand the keys to the front desk. No one waits for their car tonight. On it. What's the timeline? 45 minutes. Let them finish the salads. I don't want them starving. I just want them leaving." I hung up and turned to my computer screens. On monitor 1, the ballroom camera feed. Jordan was laughing at something the best man was saying. Astrid was picking at her salad, looking bored. He had no idea that beneath her feet, the gas lines to the ovens had just been cut. On monitor 2, the contract. I scrolled to the signature page. T. Miller. I highlighted the cancellation clause. The venue reserves the right to cease operations immediately if the client or their guests engage in behavior deemed abusive, harassing, or threatening to the staff or property. She called my staff an infestation. She snatched food from my hand. It was petty, yes, but in the hospitality world, petty is just another word for breach of contract. I picked up the phone again. This time, I called the DJ booth. "Hey, this is Valerie from Ops," I said. "Change of plans. After the current set, I need you to cut the mic." "Cut the mic, but the speeches are next." "Exactly," I said. "Cut the mic. Pack up your gear. Tell them there's a power surge if they ask. You'll be paid in full." Okay, you're the boss." "Yes," I whispered, looking at Astrid on the screen. "I am." I watched the screen. The waiters were clearing the salad plates. Usually this is when the main course would be firing. The sizzle of 200 fillets hitting the grill. Instead, the kitchen was dark. The staff were sitting on the stainless steel prep tables, eating the wedding food. Henry was slicing the beef Wellingtons and passing them out to the dishwashers. It was a beautiful mutiny. I saw Sarah enter the ballroom on the feed. She looked pale. She walked up to the head table and whispered something to Jordan. Jordan frowned. He pointed at his watch. Sarah shook her head and pointed to the kitchen doors. Astrid slammed her hand on the table. "Here we go." I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking softly. This was the moment of leverage. They were trapped. They had 200 guests, no food coming, and a venue that was slowly shutting down around them. My phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. "Who is this? My planner says there's a problem in the kitchen. Fix it. I'm paying a fortune." He still thought he was talking to an employee. He still thought money was the universal remote control for reality. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the climate control app. Grand ballroom. Current temp, 72 degrees F. Target temp, 85 degrees F. I hit enter. It's Florida in May. Without AC, a room with 200 people becomes a swamp in about 20 minutes. I wasn't just kicking them out, I was sweating them out. I took another sip of champagne. It tasted like victory. Crisp, cold, and expensive. The door to my office opened. It was David, my lawyer. He had the termination notice in his hand. "You're really doing this," he said, looking at the screens. "Staff eat in the kitchen, David," I said. "And tonight, the owner eats in the office. And the guests, they don't eat at all." David looked at the monitor. Astrid yelling at a terrified waiter who was explaining there was no Seabus. "She really pissed you off," David noted. "It's not about anger, David," I said, turning the AC down another 2 degrees on the screen. "It's about standards, and they just failed the inspection." I stood up. "Come on, let's go down. I want to deliver the news in person. You're going into the lion's den?" "No," I smiled, checking my reflection in the dark monitor. "I'm the zookeeper, and it's feeding time." I slipped onto the mezzanine balcony that overlooks the ballroom. It's a hidden spot, usually used for lighting technicians, hidden behind a trellis of faux ivy. From here, I was a god looking down on a decaying Olympus. The room was already changing. You could feel it. The crisp, conditioned air was being replaced by the heavy, humid breath of the Florida swamp. Guests were fanning themselves with the menu cards. The waiters had vanished, leaving uncleared salad plates on the tables like dirty snow. But the show was still going on. The best man had just finished a rambling story about a college road trip, and now Astrid stood up. She tapped the microphone. "Thump, thump, is this thing on?" she asked, her voice shrill. "God, can we get some sound engineering in here? It's echoing." The sound guy, who I had already dismissed, was gone. The feedback loop whined slightly. "Okay, whatever," Astrid sighed, holding her champagne glass. "I just want to say thank you all for coming to witness this upgrade." A few nervous chuckles from the crowd. "No, really," she continued, flipping her hair. "Jordan told me about his past. He told me about how he used to be limited, how he was stuck in partnerships, both business and personal, that didn't understand his vision." I gripped the railing. She was talking about me. Jordan had rewritten history to make me the anchor that held him down, rather than the engine that kept him afloat. "He started from the bottom," Astrid said, gesturing to the room. "And now look, he's here, we're here." "In this moderately adequate hotel," the crowd murmured. "Insulting the venue you're standing in? Bold move. Celebrating the fact that true class always rises to the top. Jordan, baby, you finally found someone who matches your tax bracket and your ambition." She raised her glass to leveling up, and to leaving the past where it belongs in the discount bin. She drank. Jordan beamed, looking like the cat who ate the canary and then bought the canary's company. It was disgusting. It was perfect. As she lowered her glass, the room went silent. Not the silence of awe, the silence of confusion. The band didn't start playing. The waiters didn't pour the toast wine. "Hello," Astrid looked toward the stage. Music, that was the cue. "Last by Etta James." "Hello," nothing. Then a guest at table 9, an older woman in sequins, waved her hand. "Excuse me, is it getting hot in here?" "It is sweltering," another guest chimed in. Astrid frowned. "Jordan, tell them to turn up the AC. And where is the main course? My dad is diabetic, he needs to eat." Jordan stood up, looking around. Server, manager, no one answered. The floor was empty of staff. From my perch, I pulled out my walkie-talkie. "Mike," I whispered, "initiate lockdown." Below me, the main double doors to the lobby clicked shut. They weren't locked. Fire code prohibits that, but the magnetic holders engaged, making them heavy. "What is going on?" Astrid's voice was rising, losing its polished veneer. "This is ridiculous. I am going to sue this place into the ground." I watched Jordan pull out his phone. He was dialing someone, probably the logistics consultant. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I looked at it. "Jordan Field's calling." I let it ring. The heat was rising. I could see sweat glistening on Jordan's forehead. The flowers on the tables were starting to droop. I typed a text to Sarah. "Go tell Jordan that the owner requests his presence in the courtyard immediately regarding a contractual emergency." I saw Sarah enter the room from the service door. She looked small in the cavernous room, but she walked with purpose. She approached the head table. She leaned in and whispered to Jordan. Jordan's face went white. He looked at Astrid, then back at Sarah. "Now," he asked loud enough for me to hear, Sarah nodded. Fine. Jordan slammed his napkin on the table. Astrid, stay here. I'm going to go fire someone. Fire everyone, Astrid screamed after him. And get me a Diet Coke. Jordan stomped toward the side exit, heading for the courtyard. I turned away from the balcony. It was time to descend. I checked my makeup in my compact mirror. Perfect, cool, composed. I walked down the spiral staircase to the courtyard. It's a beautiful space, stone fountain, gas lanterns, jasmine vines. I stood by the fountain, the mist cooling the air. I waited. The door burst open. Jordan stormed out, his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, his tie loose. "Where's the manager?" he shouted at the empty yard. "I want the owner. Right now." I stepped out from the shadows of the jasmine trellis. "Hello, Jordan," I said. He stopped. He squinted. The courtyard lighting was dim, romantic. "Who are you? Are you the owner? Look, your staff is incompetent, the AC is broken, and my wife is..." He stepped closer. The light from the lantern hit my face. He stopped breathing. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was like watching a computer crash and reboot in real time. "Valerie," he whispered. "Hi, Jordan," I said, crossing my arms. "How's the wedding?" "Here, the C-bus is unavailable." He looked around, panicked. "What are you doing here? Do you work here?" I laughed. It was a dry, sharp sound. "Work here?" "Jordan, look around." I gestured to the sprawling resort, the tower suites, the manicured gardens. "I don't work here." I took a step closer. "I own it. You own this," Jordan stammered, his eyes darting from me to the hotel logo etched into the stone fountain. "Every brick," I said, "every sheet, every contract, including yours." He laughed nervously. It was a reflex. Okay, Val, good for you, you did well. But look, this is crazy. You can't just shut down my wedding because you're jealous." "Jealous?" I repeated the word as if it were a foreign coin. "Jordan, you booked my venue under a fake name to avoid paying the commercial tax rate, and your wife just assaulted my staff. This isn't about jealousy, it's about liability. She didn't assault anyone. She's just particular." She snatched a plate from my hands. "Jordan," I said calmly. "Me, the owner. She told me to eat in the kitchen." Jordan paled. "That was you?" "In the jumpsuit, that was me." He ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, look, I didn't know, I'm sorry. Astrid she's under a lot of pressure. Let's just fix this. Turn the AC back on, get the food out. I'll pay extra. Whatever you want, double the fee. I don't want your money, Jordan. I already have your deposit. According to the contract you signed, or rather, that your mistress Tracy signed, I keep it in the event of a breach." "Tracy isn't he started, then stopped. He realized he was in a minefield. "Save it," I cut him off. "Here is the reality. The event is over. The police have been notified that we have trespassers on the property. You have 15 minutes to vacate the premises before they arrive to assist with the removal." "Trespassers? We are guests. Guests adhere to the code of conduct. You are now liabilities." The door to the courtyard banged open again. Astrid marched out, sweating, her makeup starting to run. "Jordan, what is taking so long? It's a sauna in there. People are leaving." She stopped when she saw me. "You," she pointed a manicured finger. "The kitchen eater. What are you doing here? Jordan, why are you talking to the help?" Jordan looked at her, then at me. He looked sick. "Astrid," he said, his voice weak. "She's not the help." "What?" "She owns the hotel, Astrid." Astrid froze. She looked me up and down. "Her? She owns this? Please, look at her haircut. It's practically a bob." I smiled. "It's a Prada jumpsuit, Astrid. And yes, I own the hotel. Which means I own the ballroom you're standing in, the electricity you're wasting, and the air you're currently polluting with your attitude." Astrid's jaw dropped. "You can't talk to me like that. Do you know who my father is? Does he know you're holding a wedding in a venue owned by your husband's ex-fiancé?" I asked sweetly. Astrid whipped her head toward Jordan. "Ex-fiancé, this is her. The catering failure, hospitality mogul," I corrected. "And yes, it's me." Astrid turned red. A vein in her forehead throbbed. "Jordan, did you know this?" "No, I swear." Jordan held up his hands. "I used the agency." "You brought me to your ex's hotel?" Astrid screamed, shoving his chest. "You cheap, lazy idiot. This is humiliating." "It gets worse," I interrupted. "The wedding is canceled right now. Security is escorting your guests to the front drive as we speak." "You can't do that," Astrid shrieked. "I have rights. I have a contract." I pulled the folded paper from my pocket, the one David had prepared. "Actually, I unfolded it. You have a breach of contract. Clause 14b, Clause 7, Clause 9. Basically, you broke every rule except no smoking. The night is young. I handed the paper to Jordan. He took it like it was a death warrant. You have 10 minutes left. I checked my watch. I'd suggest you go get your purse. It's hard to hail an Uber without a phone. Uber? Astrid looked like she was going to vomit. I am not taking an Uber in a Vera Wang gown. Then you can walk, I said. It's a lovely night. A bit humid, though. Astrid let out a primal scream of frustration and turned on Jordan. Fix this. Fix it now, or I swear to God, Jordan, I will burn your life down. I think, I said softly, someone already beat you to that. I turned and started walking back toward the hotel doors. Wait, Jordan called out. Valerie, please don't do this. Think about what we had. I stopped. I didn't turn around. I am thinking about it, Jordan, I said. I'm thinking about the studio apartment. I'm thinking about the debt you left me with. I'm thinking that staff eat in the kitchen. But tonight, the staff are eating lobster thermidor, and you're eating humble pie. I walked through the doors and let them close behind me. Protocol 0 was complete. Now for the cleanup. I walked back into the lobby. It was chaos, but controlled chaos, the kind I like. My security team, dressed in their dark suits, were politely but firmly guiding guests toward the exit. Valet stand was a disaster zone of confused people waiting for cars that had been parked in the lower lot. What is happening? A bridesmaid asked me, holding her shoes in her hand. Building maintenance issue, I lied smoothly. Gas leak in the kitchen. Very dangerous. We had to evacuate for your safety. A gas leak, she gasped. Oh my God, yes, terrible. Please, move toward the exit. It's amazing how easily people believe a lie when it involves their safety. Outside, under the portico, the reality was setting in for Jordan and Astrid. They were standing on the curb. No limo, no fanfare. Just their luggage, which my bellhops had efficiently removed from the bridal suite and stacked on the sidewalk. Astrid was sobbing, loud, ugly sobs. Her mascara was running. Jordan was on the phone, screaming at someone, probably his lawyer or maybe his mom. I stood behind the glass doors of the lobby, watching. David, my lawyer, walked up beside me. "Police are here," he noted. A squad car rolled up the driveway, lights flashing silently. 2 officers got out. They knew me. We host the Police Benevolent Association Gala every year. Evening, Miss Sterling. Officer Miller touched his hat. We got a call about a disturbance. I pushed the door open and stepped out. Officer Miller, I said warmly. Thank you for coming. We have some guests who are refusing to leave after their event was terminated for safety violations. They're becoming belligerent. I pointed at Jordan and Astrid. Astrid saw the police and stormed over. Officer, arrest this woman. She stole my wedding. Officer Miller looked at Astrid, disheveled, screaming, mascara stained, and then at me, calm, collected, standing on the steps of my own hotel. Ma'am, Miller said to Astrid, you need to lower your voice. Don't tell me what to do. Do you know who I am? I don't care who you are, ma'am. The owner has asked you to leave. That means you leave. Otherwise, it's criminal trespass. Criminal trespass? Jordan ran over. Officer, we paid for this venue. And the contract was voided. David stepped in, handing the officer a card. Civil matter regarding the refund. Criminal matter regarding the presence on property right now. Officer Miller nodded. You heard the man. Time to go, folks. Jordan looked at me. His eyes were pleading. Val, please. Where are we supposed to go? It's Memorial Day weekend. Everything is booked. I hear the Motel 6 by the highway has vacancies, I said. They leave the light on for you. A few of the guests, realizing the wedding was truly over, had started pulling out their phones. One of them, a girl with blue hair who I recognized as a TikTok lifestyle vlogger, was filming the whole thing. Oh my God, you guys, she was narrating into her phone. The owner just evicted the bride. This is insane. #wedding fail #hotel drama. I looked right at the camera and winked. Astrid saw the phone. Stop filming, stop it, she lunged at the girl. Officer Miller stepped in, grabbing Astrid's arm. Okay, that's enough. Ma'am, you're coming with us to cool off, or you can get in a cab right now. Astrid recoiled. I'm leaving, I hate this place. I hate Florida. She grabbed her suitcase and began dragging it down the driveway, her heels clicking unevenly on the pavement. Jordan stood there for a second, looked at his wife walking away into the darkness. He looked at his confused guests. He looked at me. You win, he mouthed. "I won 5 years ago, Jordan," I said loud enough for him to hear. "I just didn't cash the check until today." He hung his head, picked up his garment bag, and followed Astrid. I watched them disappear down the long, palm-lined driveway. The vlogger was still filming. "Show's over, folks," I said to the crowd. "Valet is bringing your cars around. Safe drive home." I turned and walked back inside. The air conditioning in the lobby hit me cool, crisp, perfect. "Sarah," I called out. "Yes, boss." She appeared at my elbow, looking exhilarated. "Unlock the bar. Open the top shelf. Drinks are on the house for the staff tonight. And the food, send the rest of the lobster to the local shelter. But save a plate for me. I'm starving." "Where will you be eating?" I smiled. "In the kitchen." The next morning, the sun rose over the Gulf of Mexico like a gold coin flipping into the sky. I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee and my iPad. The internet was melting down. The TikTok video had 4 million views. The caption, "CEO's wedding canceled mid-toast by boss BTCH hotel owner X." #karma, the comments were a river of fire. The way she stood on the steps. Queen. "Wait, is that Jordan Fields, guy who laid off 500 people via Zoom? He deserves it. Staff eat in the kitchen needs to be on a t-shirt." My marketing metrics were through the roof. Reservations for next season were up 400% overnight. People didn't see me as a villain. They saw me as a guardian of standards. I had branded the Azure Coast as a place that tolerates zero nonsense. We were now the FK around and find out hotel, and apparently, that's a very lucrative niche. Sarah knocked on my door. "You have a delivery," she said, grinning. She placed a box on the table. It was from Jordan's office. I opened it. It was the contract termination countersigned and a check for the damages to the carpet. Someone had spilled red wine during the evacuation, and a note. "You made your point." I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. He still thought it was about making a point. It wasn't. It was about cleaning house. Also, Sarah added, "Astrid is trending on Twitter, not in a good way. The video of her lunging at the vlogger got her dropped by her sponsorship deals." "Tragic," I said, sipping my coffee. "Send a fruit basket to the vlogger. Invite her back for a free weekend stay." Already done. I looked out at the ocean. The storm had passed. The water was blue and calm. I thought about the young woman I used to be, Valerie Fields, the caterer who cried in the bathroom while Jordan flirted with investors. I thought about the woman who slept on an air mattress and ate ramen so she could buy paint for the lobby. I wished I could go back and tell her, "Hold on. It gets better. One day you'll own the building." My phone rang. It was David. "Val, we have a problem." "What now?" "I have 3 major tech companies calling. They want to book their holiday parties here." Specifically asked if the owner would be present to keep everyone in line. I laughed. "Tell them yes. But the price just went up." 30%, you're ruthless." "I'm efficient," I said. I hung up and stood. I walked to the railing of the balcony. Below, the pool was opening. Guests were laying out towels. The staff were moving with quiet precision, setting up umbrellas. Maria, the housekeeper, looked up and saw me. She waved. I waved back. Astrid was right about one thing. Staff eat in the kitchen. But what she forgot is that the kitchen is where the knives are kept. And in my house, we know how to use them. I went back inside.
Funny how life can twist itself into knots and then somehow straighten out again.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening and being here.